Hey, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. We've had some disappointments lately, and it does inspire me to talk about how you would think that helping people unconditionally without any thought of return would be easy, and it really isn't easy. A little while ago, it's quite a while ago now, because I'm going to talk about a great man, Larry Malley. And Larry Malley was an ex-American New York cop, as I remember. He was a New York cop for some 30 years and was quite a tough guy. He once told me that he used to be called in for really bad cases, and he made an observation to me which I never forgot. Now, I should tell you very quickly that Larry Malley started and ran a thing called, and I say past tense because he has now passed. He was injured in a road accident and apparently was already dead when they got him to hospital. So that's a great loss, especially to here in the Philippines, because Larry ran a thing called Medical Mission Matters. Now, I'm not quite sure whether that group is still running, but what Larry Malley did was he brought together lots of people who were willing to give their incredible expertise to helping children. And there were offshoots to the fact that he was helping, which he confided in me. Not just in me, didn't just confide them in me, he probably told everybody that was willing to listen, because it's a hard thing. But he said that as a cop, looking back as a cop, and now looking at his mission to help, was in getting together talented surgeons who could work under the probably very primitive conditions, and they could help children up to a certain age who had the cleft palate. So I saw some examples when I met Larry of kids waiting to go into surgery, and what Larry had was, over a long weekend I think it was, they put cots out in Ubay. That was where we met him, and he was loved by people. You know, the parents of these children who otherwise would have no life. It's possible. I remember when I first came to the Philippines, an image that that I will take to my grave was when I was visiting in a very, very poor barrio, and I saw a child come to a window of a very poor nipa house as I was passing, and the child had a cleft palate, and the hair lip was completely gone at the front here. The child would never be able to function as an adult later in life, would always be at the mercy of what caregivers, and it was harrowing to see that. So meeting Larry Malley all of these years later was in some way synchronicity. Synchronicity, one of my favorite words, because synchronicity was I think a favorite word, or coined by Carl Jung, Jung. Look him up, Carl Jung. Carl Jung said that there was such a thing as synchronicity, and that is that two apparently separate, disconnected things were actually joined, and that there was no such thing as an accident, that all things came together in a way that they should, even though sometimes people would say, well, I didn't want to have my leg off, I didn't want to be injured. I didn't want to lose everything. In some indefinable way, things are connected. Well, I met Larry Malley all of these years later, and he was doing something about that child whose image was burned into my head. And while we were talking, we were walking around the rooms that he had been given by the hospital, extended that space. They put the extra cots out, and we walked past cot after cot of mother and child, father and child, and the child was waiting to have the operation. They had to be a certain age, and it was difficult to get all of that organized. They had to, he said that part of how they worked was that they gave a course of vitamins, worm tablets, all of that, so that the child would not have parasites and so on, prior to having the operation. So that was something that had to be done, and he would make sure that all of that was done. And then the child would come in on the designated weekend when they were doing everything. And these wonderful surgeons that he had, he laughed when he talked to me about this, because he said, I never planned it this way, but they're all beautiful. Apparently that they were all relatively young, certainly beautiful surgeons, ladies. And he said, the thing that I wanted to get to, as usual, I'm very long-winded, but the thing that he told me was, he said, looking back as a cop and seeing what I'm doing now, it was easier to put a really bad criminal behind bars than it is to help. Now, this astonished me really, because I would have thought that people, when they're being helped, would be with open arms. But it's not that way. And Larry told me about things that had happened with him where people had tried to take credit from him. He had done these incredible, almost miraculous things, and I certainly saw evidence of that when I walked around and I saw some of the children who had been operated on, and the mothers were there, and they adored Larry Malley. What a great, great man. He allowed us, and if you are willing, I mentioned this on a video a little while ago, if you're willing, you can find the video that we made back then, which I'm guessing must be 2 years ago now, but he allowed us to go into the operating room, such as it was, a room that was just made up, and that was the children were being operated, and I think, if I remember rightly, there were 2 or 3, a minimum of 2, possibly 3 or more surgeons, these lovely ladies, all working on their charge with the most basic facilities. It was kind of like suddenly being thrown into a civilian type MASH, like the movie MASH, where they're operating under primitive conditions. And we made a video of that and actually talked to the surgeon that was operating on a child. It was a very moving experience, and that's what I wanted to talk about. That we have found the same thing, that it's very difficult to help. Beth understands these things much more than I do, but Beth and I are just 2 people working with our supporters, right? People who we can call on. We have the Superman team who get to build the houses for us, and we have lots of people out there, our extended support system here, that will help us. to do what we have to do. And sometimes it depends on whether Beth can navigate. In the case of our last two big operations, was Dennis, who had his right leg amputated right up into the groin. I mention that because if he'd had it amputated, say, just above the knee, it would have been easier to get a prosthetic leg for him. But it would be quite a challenge, I think, to fit him now with a leg. So we got him into hospital, and Beth, because of her experience working in a hospital before I met her, she was 7 or 8 years, she was a working student and then was offered a place in the billing department of the hospital that she had been a working student at. And so she knows the system. Me, I go there, I go with her, I drive her there, I sit there and I watch in amazement, in admiration, at the way that she navigates the system. Going here in the Philippines, in the public hospital, it really is a challenge, because they have various windows which you must go to in order to process your case. The people that we took, we've taken 2 or 3 people now, 4 people, and we've taken them and gotten them the help that they need. And Beth does that. She does it with a smile, and she does it so that everybody feels good having talked to her. And she goes to the various windows, which is a real trial, a real challenge. Not as a foreigner, of course. Any foreigner trying to navigate that system would have steam coming out of his ears, you know. Present company accepted, of course. So the helping. I've found that my sense of what should happen when you've helped somebody is rocked. I mean, I'm rocked back on my heels at the way that things happen here in the Philippines, because whatever happens, if you look a little bit like me, God forbid you should, but if you are a foreigner and you're coming and you hope to help here in the Philippines, you have to leave behind your ideas of how it should work in your country. You're leaving a way of life which has got to change. And you will, if you are a foreigner coming to live here, you will always be a foreigner, and you will get on much better. If your mission is to come here and try to make a difference, to help, then you will have to learn to do it in the way that will encourage the powers that be that you may be approaching for some cooperation in your help. You must be able to do it in a way that will not alienate them from you. Somebody once told me, never go into a governmental office and get annoyed, because if you do, they will naturally, understandably, not want to help you. So you got to learn the Filipino way, and the Filipino way is non-confrontational. Non-confrontational. You get that? So there's no going in and, I don't know, say something's happened and you've got to make a complaint. Can't go in and say, what the hell is going on here? What happened to your customer service? How come no one's helping me? That's not going to work. That's not going to work. No one will help you. So it's hard to help. You would think it would be easy. Let me tell you, it's not. Am I complaining? No, I'm not, because I see how others that I've been in the proximity of someone who couldn't make himself understood at a hardware store. And he was getting annoyed. Now, think about that situation. He's getting annoyed because they don't understand him. He is a foreigner in another country who don't speak his language by guarantee, and so they will handle it as best they can. Now, one of the things that most expats have learned to laugh about is when they go into a store like Altaurus, which is our quite big, pretty good supermarket. Nothing like Costco, okay? I'm not trying to compete, but it's pretty good. Now, if you go in there and you might, I don't know, you might ask for baking soda. You say, so you call somebody, and naturally you're used to speaking English because it seems like most people speak English, and they do. Most people speak much better English than they think, not than you think, than they think. But they suffer what they call a nosebleed, which is a complete loss of confidence as to how good their English sounds, even though you will probably be just delighted with how good their English is. And so you call somebody over who is certainly probably a college graduate, but is not of any special skill in English. He will have shown when he applied to the supermarket that he could speak some English, but it would not be fluent, and he's still not exempt from the nosebleed. And he will come up and you say, where's baking soda? We're out of stock. Sorry sir, we're out of stock. Now, most expats know better than to accept that, and they look around and they find another worker, somebody, maybe someone who looks like they're maybe a supervisor or something. Usually a lady, because the ladies seem to be very clever. Can you tell me where the baking soda is? Yes, sir. And they then take you to where the baking soda is, where you discover that there are shelves laden with baking soda. Right? So this is what you are confronting. This is what you are putting up with and what you're going to have to learn to deal with. And if you're going to try to help people, it is difficult, because sometimes they've given up hope on ever being helped. We had that one case. We've now taken this little girl, baby Jane. We've taken baby Jane to hospital 3 times. 3 times. She has osteogenesis imperfecta. And the last time that she broke her leg up into the thigh, she was trying to skip. Someone had a skipping rope in the little community, and she saw it there, and she, as a little girl, said, why can't I try? And that's what she did, and she tried to use the skipping rope, and she fell, and she broke her leg. When we took her to hospital, that was the last time. We knew that had happened, but we didn't find out until 1 week later. Now, unfortunately, the first time that we were called, the first time that we found out about baby Jane having a broken leg, she had a compound fracture of her leg below the knee. compound means both bones. So it's kind of just like this. And when we found out that it was already a week, that the injury was already a week old, I'm afraid I lost it. You can look at that video with baby Jane and see that I lost it, and said, how could you leave it? I said to the mother, how could you leave it for a week? Because she knew that she had a broken leg. What I didn't understand then, because of my ignorance and my arrogance as a foreigner, was that the family had no money. And how could they go to a hospital knowing that they couldn't pay, and believing that they would be turned away? So this is the kind of thing that we have learned to work around. And judgment, being judgmental, is one of the first things that goes along with your arrogance as a foreigner. So I think I've probably gone on a little bit too long. If you're coming out here and you've seen some of our videos and perhaps been inspired, I hope you have been inspired to try to help yourself. Just remember that you're the foreigner, and don't expect that everybody is going to rush out. There's all kinds of reasons which are cultural and embedded deep in the Filipino psyche about being helped. It ain't easy. Thanks for looking in. Bye for now.